Yeah, structure.
Which is different.
I use it for teaching.
So I'll give you a chance to jabber as much as structure.
Yeah.
So perfect.
A lot of the things that we've already talked about, just the general outline. I think we've talked about a lot of these, but I was just going to kind of talk specifically today about how our university is struggling with implementing policy, again, specifically how it's being done throughout. So again, within the last year, the differences has been astounding in a very positive way. But as we've all come to realize, that implementation takes time, and there's lots of levels to this. So that is kind of what we're going. Just a real quick definitions. I like definitions, being in the academic world, and how a lot of times EMI is not satisfactory, or how definitions are not satisfactory. I think, when I looked at this definition, I kind of scoffed at it, because I kind of thought to myself, and no language aims are specified? Huh? I totally disagree with that statement, but that's just me being contrarian. So this will be available obviously to all of you. And again, EMI, target L2 learners. Huh? Something about no language specification. I don't know how you could be a language teacher and not, in the L2 learning and not have language. So the whole idea of EMI being just solely functioned on the content, I think is not correct. So nonetheless, I understand how, as a heuristic device, to kind of say content versus language, how do we deal with this? Again, I've been placed in lots of different situations, so how do you differentiate between CBI and CLIL? Again, I find this debate within their little world quite interesting. You talk to Donna Britton, so one of the CBI experts from the US. CLIL is a subsection of CBI. It's not distinct from, distinct to, whatever grammatical portion you want to use. So I find that really interesting, looking at some of these things. I was going to ask you about how you see CLIL and, again, content. So what credit are you getting it for? We talked a little bit about this. So as a teacher, when you're placed in a room, are you doing it for language? Are the students getting a language credit, or are they getting a content credit? That's what I find interesting about this. So I answer that. CLIL to me is if it's language. Right? If it's not language, then it's EMI. So, but that's the kind of policy side guiding. I think there was the other idea of assessment. We kind of hinted at it, talked a little bit about it. And again, I tend to be on my expertise is in assessment, in second language assessment, so I tend to favor the arguments of assessment, how it's put in and how we see assessment in language learning versus traditional content-based classes. Again, pretty certain when we were undergrads, you write a paper, maybe 2 tests, 1 test, but basically you write a paper. You might have a midterm, maybe not, but that was it. Assessment was a very, very vague idea. Check, check plus, check minus. That was basically it. So obviously, with AI, it's much more difficult now. Well, maybe as a teacher, you check plus for any written assignments. So I think the idea of cheating is very, very different. And again, last year I came and asked you the question of why do students cheat? And again, basic answer is they don't feel the task is worthy to do. It's insulting for them. So again, I think another point that needs to be pointed out is that we're focusing on the summative point. Several of the presentations today have said we need to be thinking about the process, not the end point. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. Some of the things I talked about last time was students want an AI policy. Right? Just clarity. Where do I stand? Right? Majority of the students support AI use. What it's really interesting is, again, they're against it in the sense of the cheating aspect. So let's use AI, but don't use it for cheating. So I think that's kind of natural. not against that. I want to show my own work, unless the task is useless. If I don't find it meaningful or useful, then whoever, please do the work for me and turn it in. I'm fine with that. So, kind of from last year to this year, kind of thinking about it, is I feel a lot of students are kind of in this area, right? And I'm thankful that, you know, Notebook LM, so I'm a new user to Notebook LM, so kind of found, I don't know if you can tell the difference between my PowerPoint slides, you know, slight upgrade here. But I still think this is the point, this is where we're at, and we're transitioning to this point. And I think this is kind of difficult for a lot of teachers. They don't know what this point is. And schools don't know what this point is. And there's a lot of trepidation of what this point is. But I still feel like schools need to put implement some policy in place that we can make this jump. So I think basically removing from, I think, low-level thinking to the more cognitive aspects. We've used this word a couple different times. Again, how can we basically think of it from a tool to something more than a tool? The augmentation of it, right? And again, Nigel has talked a little bit about this. It's not a tool per se, it's beyond a tool, and I'm kind of in that realm. I can't articulate it as clearly as what he can, but I feel like I don't have to be in control of it. Not in the traditional sense of a tool. I'm totally in control. I feel like AI is a bit beyond the tool analogy. Don't press me on it because I can't really articulate why I feel that way. But that's kind of how I think it's going. And for teacher training, I'm kind of thinking, all right, how can I get them to this point? I think in EMI specifically, we have this idea of content and language happening at the same time. And I think the whole bridge aspect that you were talking about, I was thinking, wow, I wonder if our AIs are talking to one another, right? Yeah, so we got the basic idea of how can we learn content and language at the same time. And I think AI can help us with that divide. Specifically, I think Notebook LM can help me with that divide even more so. And you've already talked a little bit about that before. So, my question is to what extent does your current institution have a written protocol for use of AI? And last year, I gave the analogy of AI and the use of right. Again, it's a very powerful tool. How can we train people to use this tool to an extent? So, has there been any change, institutional changes with the policies?
Our university has on our syllabus, we have to indicate whether or not AI is allowed or not allowed, and with teacher acknowledgement.
So
we just added that.
Has that changed?
No, I mean, we just have to say whether or not it's allowed. But that's, I just noticed it on the online syllabus.
Okay, so there is some movement compared to last year.
Yeah. That was just something they implemented this past year.
About 3 weeks ago, I was told that I'm going to be coming up with the AI policy, and I've got to have it ready for next semester. Not this semester, next semester.
So I think that's a very
It's going to be me.
I think that's a very Asian-oriented way of dealing with management. Oh, you do it, you want it, you do it for us, right? You're not in charge, right?
I've shown
No,
some
no
capabilities,
instructions,
so
just
all you.
Good luck on that.
thanks.
With our online syllabi, it really just, it's two checkboxes. You can check forbidden, cannot use it, or you can check yes with teacher acknowledgement, and it's sort of very vague. So it's you either say it's banned or you can use it, but it's not really defined how. And that's sort of the administration getting around from under it.
Yeah, and then for me, our university is kind of moving much faster than that. Now, it's not necessarily implemented at the same pace. So we've got different levels of any institution of going at maybe the intra-communication is not going at the same speed as what everybody wants it to be. So I find that quite interesting, and kind of I'll talk a little bit more how we look at it. So this is the university policy, and again, maybe you guys from last year can understand it, but this is from the president's grand vision, grand design, 2030. So we had a grand design. I think we're on version 5.
Wow.
Right.
So
So again, Soka University, if you don't know, is a Buddhist-based university in Japan, and it emphasizes human education. Right? So you'll get a lot of these ideas that formulate around the idea of human value. You got to create value, but it's based on what makes us human. So kind of the changes from last year and this year is the concept of what's being. I mean, this image alone is just kind of like, wow. I mean, this does not look to me as necessarily AI is a tool or the human is in control of this tool. And it's now, we are in the center. I mean, when I first saw it, it was a storm. But maybe I thought more about it and said, wow, okay, so AI is going to be surrounding us, helping us in ways that we can't imagine, right? And again, we're at the center of this. So how can you move along in society through this? And again, what's your role in this? And so they said, okay, AI literacy is a foundational skill. Right? So now they're saying, okay, we have classes to say this is what we're going to teach. So part of the expectation is that we need to build some skills here. Right? Instead of, I think 5 years ago, the introduction of Python was introduced. And again, a couple of the departments had it, right? But now this is moving to all students. All first-year students have to take 6 units. So that's 3 courses on data science literacy. I don't know what data science literacy is yet. I mean, I can't know everything. It's out of my realm. I'm sure if I went to more of the grand design meetings, I would know more. But actually, I think it was yesterday that we had the updated meeting. I couldn't make it. Sorry, I was on a plane coming here. Perhaps they'll give me the Japanese version of it. I think they're pretty good about updating information and making it available. So, give you some more. So I found it really interesting. Again, just looking at the kanji, the choice of kanji that we're looking at versus English. You come to decide that masters generative AI. Again, masters to me has an idea of control, like I'm in control of it. I'm not really sure that's what konasu means in kind of in Japanese. I don't know how you guys how's your guys' kanji? I mean, some of you guys, but it's Japanese kanji, not Chinese kanji. So say I hold This is gawani. At first I read it as, betsuni, but it's gawani. So beside. Nice, interesting. So I'm wondering if they used AI to translate it. So, kind of interesting. So I felt like, okay, this is a shift, a big step going forward. The university has taken a step. And again, this is from the president. So I think the university has a policy, and then the president office is now making us stated. So we're getting, kind of the more top-down, traditional way. Where are we going? Which is a big jump going forward. From last year to this year, it's pretty big. So, are we okay? 2 undergraduate programs. So what I'm going to be talking about is, these are 2 undergraduate, and I kept on asking the questions, the differences between, I think, grad school and undergrad school needs to be highlighted and distinguished, because I think the purposes for AI are slightly different, or again, how I think about it is slightly different. Two different programs. Global Citizens Program. This is an extracurricular program in the undergrad. So all of the students that take this program are additional classes. So these guys are generally very highly motivated students. Quite interesting how we applied it there. Actually, the other graduate program teacher that I work with, he is teaching in it, and we were talking about it. And he was basically saying, this is how I use AI. I want them to learn the basics. So he's kind of said, I'm going to go into an undergrad class and say this is, so he's very big on critical thinking. So the idea of how can we integrate writing and critical thinking. So he has 5 papers throughout the year and basically kind of structures it to kind of integrate step 1, some of the things that we've already talked about. And then, again, the metacognitive process of understanding this information versus this information, which again is our basic writing principles, right? I don't think that's unique in that regard, but the other faculty, this is a department, a standalone full department. And then what I found really interesting is kind of what you guys were saying. It's each teacher has their own way of doing it. There is no department stated policy. The university has come out with a stated policy, but they haven't really adopted one. And I found it quite interesting because most of them are language teachers, not content edits. There's a divide in the department. Obviously, there are content-based teachers, but the language teachers basically have ignored the AI aspect of it. So some of the new teachers that I spoke to use AI much more than the older language teachers and content-based teachers in the program, which I found really, really interesting. How the undergrad, 2 specific examples of undergrad looking at it and using it. So this program is pretty much what you guys were talking about. This program pretty much ignored the value of AI. I think it's still translation, devel types of stuff, Grammarly, again, really, really minimal types of stuff, which I think they need to adopt this type of framework. Again, I'm assuming that you guys know. I think they are based in Taiwan. I might be wrong. No? I don't know. No? Okay. So they were in Japan. They presented at JOLT, so I didn't think they were in Japan. So, but they were in Japan presenting, but I thought they were from Taiwan. But I'm not so sure. So again, they were focusing mainly on writing, and I don't think this is. I think this framework applies to any skill. It's not unique to writing, but again, they weren't talking about writing. And I think this framework, again, we've all mentioned these little ideas, frameworks of how we're doing. So from last year to this year, the grassroots were moving forward, right? We're getting the system in place, the things in place that maybe people that don't understand or use AI, that they have some place to go to and kind of see something moving forward. So again, these are 5 points. I don't know if this is what you're doing, right? But I think these are something that, again, we want to talk to teachers that are teaching at this moment to say, is this what you're doing? Again, are you using AI? I think it's insufficient. I think if we're at the top of the school, asking the teacher, I think it's just a dumb way of approaching it. I think maybe going around this way, introducing a framework, or you don't even have to introduce a framework, but just start talking to them about these ideas and see how they think about it. Right? We want buy-in, right? But that's the whole idea of systematic change. If they don't buy in, it's not going to happen. Or they're going to be, against it, or they're going to drag their feet on it. It's going to cause problems administratively along the way. So introducing some of these ideas, again, how are you promoting or how are you cooperating critical thinking? I don't think we're against critical thinking. That's what we teach. So how can AI help in the idea of critical thinking skills, right? When you guys were talking, this is what I was thinking about, is the emphasis on process-oriented assessment. This argument, right, of it being summative. We have formative and summative ideas in assessment. So why isn't the process-oriented assessment emphasized? Right? This is where we need to implement AI. This is what's preventing cheating. If you're just looking at the end product, right? That's the problem with cheating, right? We want to show the steps of learning. That's what we're teaching, right? And if they can already do it, they don't need to be in your class. So let's go step by step by step by step. And there's obviously some levels that we can do better than others. And I think writing has been the easiest way to kind of implement some of these ideas. Right? They can be obviously used for all the different skills, but I still think, again, remember your prompting, 100%. Prompting. That seems to be the big divide. Those that can prompt well seem to have better understanding the use of AI. Those that are just saying, hey AI, tell me, that's not a very good prompt. Is that the rain?
Firecrackers.
Firecracker, okay, thank you.
Some God's birthday.
Right, I heard that earlier. Is it a holiday or is
They
that
just
just
they just blow up about 100 at a time. Just like
just for fun? Okay.
yeah. Well,
No particular significance at this moment. So I think this is something that we've kind of talked about. But I think the main thing is emphasizing that AI becomes visible. Documents, right? That's all those ideas that we're talking about. It's part of the academic journey, right? It's not the end point. And I think that message is not necessarily getting through to the students or the teachers or anybody in this discussion that we're having, so to speak. So again, we're in the middle stages, it's ongoing. How do you see it? And again, how I define my role, again, I'm at the end stage. You know, I could cruise for the next 5 years, wouldn't make a big difference. But to me, I think that would be unethical on my part. I would not leave the profession in a very satisfied way. So I think for me, I need to take steps to understand how does this get to new teachers? Because this is way more important to them than it is for me. And getting them to say, okay, how can we get these steps into their lesson plans, into their teaching, right? Because this is not really in teacher training ideas. We talk about formative tests, we talk about summative tests, but it's all about summative tests. And that's the end game. You want a score at the end and get it. And I think that mentality needs to be addressed with AI. And maybe AI can help address that. That's the end point. So reframing it, we don't need to ask how do we stop cheating, because that's not going to happen. Right? We should ask how do we meet student expectations for efficiency. And you guys kind of already addressed some of these ideas. We're all doing it in our own little unique way. Right? To what extent are we handling it? To what extent are we sharing it? And again, you guys are sharing more than I think others, which is a good thing, right? So, devil's advocate, I'll let you guys talk for now. Go ahead and answer the question. So, you guys compare or divide or however you want to do. I'll turn my back and let you guys. Small groups, big groups. Is that? Can you see, does AI data learning lead to long-term retention of language or just short-term performance?
I mean, this is what happens. They have journal that they have to keep at all points, and in their video that they submit at the same time, like the last section of it is what have you actually learned and the meanings, and discuss it. And that's where Kuntia, with her absolute fame, she's like, I did learn some words, I don't know what they were, I can't really remember. Oh, here's what I think, but I don't know what it means. Literally in the video. And I'm like, well, that's a fail then. You know, whereas other ones will have, 5 to 10. Be like, this is a word that I discovered, that this is where, like, when I found it, and this is what it means, and I've now used it in this moment, this moment, this moment. And that is when it's actual retention, but they have to identify it in their video, or it doesn't exist.
I would immediately reframe this question not as a yes, no, but as a
Yeah.
how can AI mediated learning lead to long-term retention versus short-term performance gain? And
there's this larger problem from the research literature of cognitive offload. So I think that's what this is getting at. Is this just short-term learning to get through your task?
Yeah.
Or is there any kind of
Create friction points where the learning happens.
So
That's the key.
Or finding ways to promote critical engagement with the output. So you don't accept the AI output as the end, but as the beginning.
Yeah.
So what your prompt what the AI responds to your prompt is the beginning of the conversation, not the end. Too many students just say, oh, I put in a prompt, I got something, that's done. But when you critically engage with it.
I think that this is, I don't know, but like, I used to teach English 102, which is, research papers, it's more advanced writing, and just, there were some students that and it's not AI related, this is actually like, here's someone's case study, this is what they said, and I was like, right, so can you identify gaps and limitations? And they're like, what? Like absolutely bewildered by the fact that someone could publish something and not be 100% correct. And like just that act of questioning, for not even AI, but just actual papers, was not there. So it's like that is, if that's mind-blowing to them, and this was only a year ago, that's mind-blowing to them.
Right.
AI is just, that's another level, really.
That's cultural.
That's a very cultural thing.
Yeah. There's a level of
But I think, as you're talking about, this is the point of university. I was always told the point of university is to learn how to think.
Yeah.
High school, junior high school is what to think,
Yeah.
right? Not to learn to think, okay?
High school too.
Right? I mean, you just regurgitate information, right? It's very descriptive. And you don't actually think, right? You're just going off.
I think the British education system is designed to become more and more, you're becoming more and more autonomous, basically. That's as you follow it.
Yeah.
Turn the mystical into
I'm reflecting on my own experience learning how to make those posters. And, now I'm extremely highly motivated to do this. And sort of the steps don't really, I still don't actually know lots of technical things about it, but I'm extremely motivated to do it. And, so in terms of the short-term, long-term learning problem, like I went from zero to that.
But how does that get into the classroom? I mean, how do you assess this?
Look, I think we have a generational issue here too, for like pretty much everyone in this room went to university. Some of us before computers were really even a thing, other than word processing, but none of us were educated with an access to AI.
Correct.
And students coming into high school, coming into our freshman level now, have had AI for the majority of their high school, if not all of it.
COVID changed the way it
And COVID before AI came out too, all that. And so, critically engaging with material, or having the wherewithal to say, what does this mean, when they're used to getting things and saying, well, that's it, that's the product. I'm really worried about that in a generational way.
I mean, it's really inspiring to see what Jay did.
Yeah.
I mean, so much of what Jay did, I think, he answers this question about how we can transform over the long term.
I just worry that Jay is in the minority of teachers.
Good habit for him.
Yeah, I just worry that that's the minority of experiences that students are getting.
Start earlier.
Yeah.
I keep saying that's my mantra now.
Yeah. Oh, like with technology.
Yeah.
Critical
Late
thinking.
elementary school
Yeah.
is not too early.
Okay, onward before the
Yeah.
We got more. I got more questions. So, all right. So we've already talked about the one size all policy is not sufficient. Again, I think we're well aware of that. So again, how do undergrads and graduate schools implement AI needs? You guys can go ahead and talk, or we can. What do you think? How do they differ?
I mean, I think graduate students maybe need it just on a practical level. Data analysis, like very basic, just putting data in, getting this, because they already have certain skills, so it just gets rid of the boring work,
I think it's much more.
I think that's a big
Useless.
assumption there. They already have the skills.
I mean, as a graduate student myself, I mean, I see as a doctoral student, I don't rely on AI. I truly do rely on papers, and to be able to go through data and that stuff, and to at least help me initially assess the data. That's what kind of, I will ask for assistance.
This may be a generalization. I think undergraduate education generally is you are presented with material and you evaluate it and give your feedback on how you see it or your opinions. Whereas in graduate school, you're generally generating the material that will be evaluated by your professor. So I think AI, in a sense, that means that the graduate students have to use a little more restraint. Whereas the undergraduates, AI can be a tool to help you gain insight. Although it can also just provide you, the answer to what you're asking. But I think it's sort of two different ways of learning.
This also boils down to exactly what you said about don't say that AI is a tool, because it's more of like a research buddy or whatever you want to call it. And I think that's almost actually for the graduate students it should be more a tool, whereas undergraduate should be more of a a friend, a tutor, exactly a co-learner.
Although I do find that AI has helped me at some points when I've been working on my own material, be it dramatic or academic, where it brings up something and I go, oh, I hadn't thought of that. And that's useful as an interlocutor and sends me down a new avenue. Then again, it also can be very, like we were discussing before, you were saying you do stuff on your AI platforms to help friends out, but then later the AI gives you feedback that has nothing to do with your field because, like you were saying, a math teacher,
Grade 7 math teacher.
And so the AI is saying, well, as a math teacher, you will know. And, well, I'm not a math teacher, but it's assuming because you put in something, it's guiding.
I think this is a key point that we can't assume that our graduate students know the material. I think that's something, like I know, again, colleagues, as we sat down and we were playing around with Gemini and asking questions, so we got feedback, we said, wow, this is really fantastic, this is really interesting conversation we're having here. But we could see arguments and pick things out and understand much more than what our students are still in that stage because they're transitioning. And they see that information still as correct, right? They don't see the arguments, they don't see the holes. I mean, they might have the skills to do that, but they're still in a position of power of, I'm a student, I'm learning. But I think with our program, I think for me in particular, TESOL offers a way of thinking about this because TESOL teachers, they're becoming teachers, but they're not teachers yet, right? And I think that they're very different because they're thinking about professional development. Like, how can I become a teacher, right? But a lot of them don't have the tools yet. They're still learners. And I think that's a really big divide. That going into a classroom, I feel comfortable because I got a good excuse. I'm old, right? I mean, back in my day, we didn't have computers, right? And Susan, oh wow, Grandpa, I think it's really important a young teacher can't say that. If a young teacher comes in and says, what's Claude? Well, that's a really embarrassing question for a young person, right? I mean, I'm assuming that to be the case because I know a lot of my students don't know any of these apps, right? So, kind of this idea, to what extent, I made this assumption, and I think I made a poor assumption that students, my grad students, knew more about AI than I did. And I don't know much. But in comparison, I am an expert.
I mean, this makes me feel a little bit bad because, I mean, I'm old and I sort of got into this, but I was asked to teach this strategies of teaching EMI for the first time. And I didn't have, I ended up going to Camp TESOL and, over the break, and I left this to do in 5 days before I was teaching it. So what did I do? I found sources, put them in the, that I sort of preview, put them in the notebook LM. I taught myself and reviewed all of the concepts and frameworks that I would need to teach my students. And then I created a notebook for that and shared it with them, and that became their interactive notebook for the class that I used to create the class and also at the same time to teach myself. about this new topic that I never taught in 5 days.
And
And I feel bad if you know, older teachers now are still sticking to a traditional way. Oh, okay, I'm going to look through this catalog and choose a textbook for my students, and I'll get my own copy of it, and then I'll go through and spend 6 weeks over the summer previewing. And it's like, oh fuck, you know,
you could have gone to Cambodia.
Stop it! You could have gone to Cambodia and done this in 5 days now. I mean, yeah, it's a little bit
But
simplified. But
at the same time, they're going to increase the workload, so people are going to have to use AI because it's going to become unrealistic. The workload is going to become unrealistic.
And that's interesting too, because that's actually what I tell my students now, even though they're underprepared, you know, they have poor study skills compared to 10 years ago. I'm saying now that you have this AI tool and I've explained to you how you can use it in this interactive textbook, I have higher expectations for you now. So I may end up failing more students in the year than I used to. And I'm not going to be
This is what I was saying, they were so upset
understanding about
that I
it.
wasn't doing writing classes there, and so much feedback. This class is just so much work, and I'm like, a 2-minute conversation where it's you and 4 people for 2 minutes should not be more work than writing a 1,000-word essay. But now it is.
Sure. Excellent. So I think this is kind of the idea of, again, just some of the things that you were doing already. Hitting on some of these ideas, I think for the TESOL program specifically is how do we get these kids through? Because again, they are coming from one level, the undergrad level, they just graduated, they're going into a master's program, and now all of a sudden they're having to do, you know, master level skills, language, and again, they're supposed to be teaching, they're supposed to know what to do in front of a class. And again, they don't really know how to do that. And at least you had all of those skills in place, so you were just the content side, which is, I think, is different than the undergrad.
I'm a different man.
Yes, which is totally the case. So this is kind of how we are going. So we have, there's 3 of us in the program. There's more of us in the program, but there's 3 main professors. We all have a stated individual policy for our classes. I am by far way ahead of the other 2. I think theirs are, let's use AI, check. And that's their stated policy. We will use AI, or we can use AI. So over just the last year alone has been, you know, kind of the reflective practice. Again, demonstrate to me, use AI. So last year I had trouble. Most of my students didn't use AI because they said, I want to do my own work. Okay? AI is not for me. You know, I don't want to cheat. Okay? So the argument is I have to bring to them, you're not using AI to cheat. You're using AI to help you. Which is again a mindset that most of the MA students didn't have, which is kind of like bizarre, giving you the green light to use it and they weren't using it.
Yeah.
So the last year I said, okay, I want you to use AI. I forced all of my students to use AI. And the statement like, you know, this is how I use AI. I use AI to brainstorm, to translate, and to check my writing. That was a one sentence. That's like, that's all you used AI for? That was it? You know? And I was like, okay. And very frustrated. So I said, okay, let's add to this. So I've pretty much said, you know, you gotta put it in, show me the prompts that are you using. So now it's kind of like, I gotta do a lot more work. I'm not teaching second language acquisition, teaching techniques, I'm teaching prompt writing. Which, okay, it's fine. So it's quite interesting to have, you know, the differences. But what we need to do is we have to, the 3 of us have to get together, which we have planned a meeting, so we're going to go and share amongst the 3 of us to say explicitly. So we have kind of a program. Let's put it in each syllable. So we're working at it. And for us, that's a big step. I'm pretty certain we're ahead of the university. Yeah, we haven't coordinated against any of our instructors. The World Language Center, again, is a little bit different than us. That's the undergrad program. They have meetings, they talk about AI usage. So again, they came up with a policy, labeled as guidelines, again, but they're not really teaching the teachers how to use. It's just like, I promise that I'll use AI in an ethical way. What does that mean? Right? The students don't know what that means. The teachers don't really. I guess they have a vague sense of what it means. Don't copy and paste. So one thing that I did pick up from last year is one of the prompts that teachers are using. I don't know if you guys are using this, but they're using the prompts. They're giving the students a prompt, and then they'll invisible the prompt. So one sentence will be, you have to use banana 5 times in the paragraph.
Yeah, I see that.
And students don't pick up on this?
They do.
They have
learned.
They've
My
learned over
students
time,
have
maybe.
reacted and
That's
they
a
go
word or
like,
two time.
it is now, I turn it into night mode and day mode. So if it's in white text, for example, on black, and when it's on night mode, it will come up because it's a black screen with white writing. And they automatically do it every single one. They all know it.
So they get it, right? So it's a band-aid. Yeah, once word gets out, then it's no longer feasible, right? So that's exactly what I thought it was, right? So again, it's effective once or twice, but again, it's not, it's shamey moment. You know, you call them out and say, don't do that again, but it's going to go away after a while once everybody else gets in place. Do a little bit of needs analysis. We've been talking to some of the students, and what we've been finding, again, our assumption is that they are behind the curve on AI. They don't know the programs. So this year, in my methodology class, I actually forced them to use Notebook LM. Everybody in class, I would say we got 10 students in the class, I would say 6 did not know what Notebook LM was. I mean, that's, even for me, that was a bit of a shock. I don't use Notebook LM very well. I mean, but at least I knew what it was. I mean, to some extent, the possibilities seemed quite broad. Yeah. And again, to what extent do I need to know to teach it is kind of what I'm struggling with at the moment. Right? I know that they need to be aware of it because they're going to need to know it for their students going forward. That's just the reality of it. So I think TESOL program specifically, that's going to be one of the challenges because most of the students that are coming in are, hey, I want to learn how to teach, English or language to non-native speakers, not learn how to write prompts, not how to use AI, right? Which is a very interesting dilemma for us language teachers. Right? So, kind of going forward, how do we do it? And then the last portion of it is the idea of assessment in AI. Right? It's archaic at this moment, right? There's a lot of cool things going on, but again, I don't think it's getting out to the general populace. So it seems to be quite niche. If you go to a conference, there's probably about, 50 or 60 AI-related presentations, and it's pretty much all related on how I use AI to do something, and almost exclusively no assessment with it. There's a vague idea, but this is how I grade it. But again, I think it's emphasizing the summative, not the formative. I think that's, again, wrong with AI. We need to emphasize the process-oriented portion. We're okay? I thought I had more questions. No, I do. So this is, I think, with my experience with EMI, CLIL, any of this idea. So this is you guys go ahead and talk in this regard. So I think you might be more real for you. So instructor in the EMI program, Chris, just before semester begins. Hey, you got to teach a class.
Yeah.
As you're on your way to Cambodia. How does your program deal with it?
That's how they deal with it.
They ask you to do it.
Jason said
Expect that I will. That just seems just ridiculous from a program level as a policy level. It's bizarre. So of course
It is. And yeah,
I mean, this is exactly one point with the teacher resource centre, so at least there's
Yeah.
something there.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
can go in a panic, at least they've got something.
yeah. So that, teachers don't have to be at the level of that I am after 25 years and having these AI skills with Notebook LM. Because if you have that, it opens up.
At least there's something.
It opens up the possibility of less experienced, less AI acknowledgement teachers to do it in those kind of situations.
And that's the role, right? And I think that was probably that was the option A, B, C. So I was just looking at, you know, how it possibly could go. Again, this actually happened in Tokyo. So my background is in political science, so I teach international relations. So we had this happen. There was like 5 of us that was teaching international relations, and then one person dropped out. And we had another teacher that doesn't teach international relations, but is familiar enough with it. So how does that teacher teach it when they're not up to level? And again, as you said, the university just says, teach it. We don't really care, right? Type of thing. So this was kind of what I was talking with AI with about, like, what do you guys think, right? Because it's
But something in Jason's case, it depends on the teacher.
sure.
Jason can do this effectively
Right.
because he's very experienced.
I mean, that's exactly the point that Jay's making with the resource center. That's well resourced.
Yeah.
Right, right. And again, what do you approach the students with?
What do I approach the student?
If you're the CLIL instructor, do you say, hey, I'm weak in this content?
I'm well.
Well, I mean, I have a way to get strong in the content, really.
You do, right? But again, I think with EMI, right, you're supposed to be the specialist, the content specialist, right? That's why I think the difference between EMI and CLIL is, you know, an important distinction, right? But when we're doing in the second language world, it's not.
My approach, and it's quite shameful, but my approach is usually that I say that I'm very well read, and the reason that they've put me in this position is because I actually have a lot of theory, a lot of knowledge, etc. But actually teaching it, I've not really done. So please stop me if I go off on tangent, and it just instantly makes me think that I'm an expert that doesn't know how to teach it, and help me teach. It's my way.
I'm an expert in teaching, but I don't know anything about the content.
Yeah.
So let's just talk. Let's work together on the content, because that was the case here. The teacher clearly didn't know enough IR.
And that's my point now is you can catch yourself up so efficiently now if you use Notebook LM as an interactive notebook in textbook yourself.
Yes.
As you're preparing.
Because you already have the skills to do that.
And then I can use that in a class to demonstrate to students how you can do it yourself.
But again,
How far that goes, though.
exactly. I think to a 25-year-old or 30-year-old teacher, yeah. Well, I was just in that class.
Or I'm going to ask to teach all the chemistry.
Yes. Yes. Again, I think, I don't know about you, but I've read some, recently neuroscience, how the brain works with language, and there's a lot of, you get down in the nitty-gritty, there's a lot of vocabulary words where I don't know. How do you pronounce this word?
Yeah, Notebook LM's not going to teach you all that in 2 days.
Exactly. So, yeah, types of stuff. So I think there are limits. I mean, in the language world, I think we're okay, and CLIL is kind of a saving point to that. But if I'm going to have to teach accounting or something like that, I'll be knowledgeable about it.
I keep thinking, many years ago, Joe got asked to teach AP economics.
Yeah.
And Joe's a master's degree in sociology, but quantitative sociology, and really strong quant background, so it wasn't that different. And with AI, you would have been able to do that. Like it took you a summer, but you would have been able to do it now in a week. But it's not that different.
Yeah, I mean, that's
That's
like
a
my
good
experience.
It's a good case.
But now with the
Back
chemistry,
then.
the content. Yeah.
I mean, there are limits. This is the weakness of EMI in general as a policy, again, how the universities deal with it, and I think the way the university handle with you is very common, right? Which is, again, I think that's the role.
That's why I got to start teaching general language.
Yeah, exactly.
The only rocks in the bridge stuff.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Look
So,
out for sure.
and that's the idea of, if you're going to replace somebody, I mean, how can you connect with the students and what's the role? And I think with AI now, it helps so much more. I mean, the situation that I had that occurred was 1994, 1994, so yeah. Yeah, it was a disaster for those students that had that teacher's class. And somewhat feel, I still remember it, so I don't feel 100% good about it, but I'd imagine the university should have been, they shouldn't have allowed that to occur. But again, what do you do in those situations? At least now we have AI to help.
Something that just occurred to me is, now that we have, can create notebooks on Notebook LM and have it be an interactive notebook. I mean, you can have a part of a specialist that create a notebook on Notebook LM and then share it with the new instructor, and they can use it themselves and catch up very quickly before they have to.
This sounds really dangerous.
I mean, what happened with me, I got the teacher's syllabus that departed. I got the way they taught the class schedule, and I looked at it and I said, Jesus, that's the way they taught it. I'm not going to teach it that way. So, but she got that.
But if you got a notebook, it's flexible.
Yeah, so flexible.
Well, I understand how that sounds, and from when I reflect back on the way I got taught in junior high school, Jim Hall, who's the phys ed teacher, had come and teach physics to us because he didn't have a physics teacher.
Oh, I've lived through that.
So stuff like that goes on all the time. And I remember him explaining, because we all knew he was the phys ed teacher, explaining to us how he was actually qualified to do this. And, so we know that goes on all the time, especially in public schools. But, you know where I'm going with this. Like that's a system that's right for abuse.
Yeah.
It has to be done.
Go ahead, Joshua.
I was going to say, last year I attended a session in Phnom Penh that had just teachers that were talking about what they did with AI. And there's a teacher in an international high school who's taught history. And he, through YouTube and everything else, decided to build an AI bot that was King Tut. And he taught the students about ancient Egypt through the use, actually King Tut taught it to them, through the use of this bot. So it's also turning the teaching over to an extent to these bots, right, based off of us as professors, as teachers, instructors, whatever, building these bots that then teach in like a creative way. Because I think AI, in addition to filling these gaps, has the ability to be very creative with teaching.
It's a feature of the magic school. That's exactly what it is. It's a feature that you can get the character to be the AI tutor instead. But had a massive, it kicked off one of the online AI teaching groups that I was in, where someone said to generate an image, like imagine you're writing a newspaper article for when this happens. And they've generated some stuff and people were going, yeah, but then they're relearning history as if it happened a different way, and you're actually creating more, doing more damage than good, because then they're going to start thinking this is how it went, and it's just going to change and change and change, and it became this huge, like my phone was just going and going with people getting involved,
I can imagine that. I mean, again,
As a
parent, paying X amount of dollars for an elite school that did that, I would be pissed.
That's a real opportunity. I mean, how do you fix that? Well, you teach them the timeline. I mean, Notebook LM is great about creating timelines too, very quickly. You create the real timeline and go through ancient Egypt history as it really was, and then say, interact with this bot. And then, how does that differ and compare to the actual timeline that we went through originally? Yeah, and reflect from a different perspective. Use it that way.
Yeah, great in theory, but kids or young learners that again they don't have that knowledge to begin with. We can do it because we have a lot of that knowledge.
Well, maybe undergraduates, not before that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's one assumption that we constantly make. Just to finish up, just the idea of undergraduate and graduate policies. I think again, just knowing the differences, that there are differences between the two schools and the purposes of them, I think will help articulate the AI policy a little bit differently. Again, at the moment, AI is such a broad thing. Do you use it? Do you not use it? And that's still vague. So just kind of highlighting the differences between undergrad and grad. And then I think the process, understanding that we're part of the institution and we got to go through, and I think number 7 is kind of important. The evaluation, regularly assessed, right? Regularly assessed. The longitudinal aspect I think is important, but again, my mantra in assessment is stop focusing on the summative point. Start moving to the formative, because that's way more important, right? That's learning.
I like what Josh said about multimodal as well. I think that's really important, just getting different ways of doing it. It's huge.
So, and again, I think these the slides and all that are available, so you can read through and more, get to think about these thoughts. Again, I like Notebook Element in the sense of it gave you really cool designs, but it helped me. I can just leave it to you and you can think about it. I'm much better with information looking at it later then.
Have you used Gamma? Gamma is a slide generation thing, so you can put in.
Oh yeah. What we call it is just slides. It's under beta version. So
Gamma's a good one.
So that was the other thing I was going to say is that I'm a proponent of whatever the university offers. That's what you use. Because a couple of people will still use Moodle and stuff like that. And again, that's fine at another university because that's what they use. I don't mind, but again, we've got these systems to get on board type of thing. And the same thing with software. So they can use other software, but I'm just saying why. I mean, this is what the university is providing, so let's stick with this. You can use others. That's not limited to that. But as a student, especially in Japan, if you're using outside things and if they feel like they don't want to give up privacy information, so if a student says, I don't want to sign up to this, and even if you say it's free, you can't, they just say, I don't want to use my email or anything like that, end of discussion. The school will side on the student side. So the school basically says, okay, we've got an email, we've got a system in place, the students cannot object to you using this software. And the great thing about our university is that if we want something, like Notebook LM, because I think last year we didn't have availability to do it, so a lot of teachers said, can we get it? Right? And the school said, okay, let's put it on to our, and so it's now part of our system. So I think moving forward as a school, again in the university case, this is something I would advocate for teachers and students. And then, so I've been at a couple schools where I wanted to use Google or something like that, and the student said, I don't want to make a Google account. And the university sided with that. I was like, well, okay.
Use a fake name, though.
The concept of Mendokusai was really big, and they said, no, we don't want to use it.
Well, I mean, this is part of the institutional support.
Yeah. And the institution said, yeah, the student's right. You're wrong. You can't use it. It's like, okay, thanks for the support. Thanks for learning. You're to support learning.
I've never had a student, if I ask everybody, do you have a phone? I've never had a student say no.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, Japan, they'll say, no, I don't want to use my data. Sorry. And that just shuts it down. If the school hears about that, you said, like, you're forcing the students to use their data, I mean, you might even be fired for that. Really? It's draconian in that sense. Yeah.
But doesn't the school have Wi-Fi?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like.
You can, but it's not, there's dead zones in the university, so it's not all, so again, if your room is a dead zone and you say use it, again, pretty much so, students are going to use it as a way to get out of something, right? And the university's going to side on their side.
Our school has a, does anybody else, I don't know if anybody else does, our school has a Google agreement. So every student who enrolls is given a Google account. Like it's their student number is the account. School account, yeah. But that's what, so we can require them to do things. And they can't say no because you have the account, so the school is not yours.
But that like our school account can only, it won't work outside of the school.
Oh, ours.
Yeah, so, I mean, it will for an email, but like if you want to do other things with it, like if you wanted to share the program, like what's the whiteboard in Google? they had a whiteboard where students could go on and share, you know, and we could work together on the whiteboard.
Microsoft whiteboard.
Okay, that's what it's called. So other, like if you use your Gmail, you couldn't join. It had to be the university Gmail. Like, it was restricted to that type of stuff. So,
but like for Google Docs and stuff like that, you know, I do a lot of stuff where we're developing scripts, and I want my students to collaborate.
yeah.
I want to have a view.
So they can, but they can't collaborate outside of that ecosystem. It's just,
We just said that for the teachers, that our students don't get the mail account. We have mail.mcu, but it's run by Google.
Yeah.
The professors have it, but our students don't.
We have both professor and student. Now ours is
Yeah, your school's
GM.
paying more.
Do you guys use Adafy? I just came up with it. I just learned about it a couple weeks ago. It was made by a couple of junior high students who were like pissed that they were doing all the work and their friends weren't helping. And so it's a plug-in for Google Chrome. And if you open a Google Doc and you hit that extension, it'll show you every edit made to the page, who did it, where they got the material, how much was pasted, like if it's a whole block of text, it'll show you when you can replay in real time them typing it and play it at different speeds, see how long it take them to type that paragraph. It'll show you every backspace, every revision.
Is it editable?
I bet they use Claude Code.
AIDIFY, yeah. But they went deep
they spent more
dive
time doing
into
the coding
Google's,
than the actual assignment.
they would deep dive into these two kids would deep dive into Google and figure out how it logs everything, and they said, okay, make it transparent. And so you can see, I can see every line of text and who wrote it. It's all color coded.
My students have done it. I just didn't know they used this because I have a team writing thing and I just part of it.
But seriously, I bet they use Claude Code just to.
They have.
That's why I said Claude Code is the next. The next
You
thing.
guys, the staff probably wants to go.
Thank you all for
Yeah.
that.